If you've ever wondered how to speak like a CEO and show real executive presence, the answer is not more confidence. If you're a consultant, coach, leader, or speaker who knows your work is powerful, but your body and your voice don't always cooperate on stage, this is for you. I've been doing this work for 15 years. I'm a global best-selling author. I've presented globally on this topic. I've worked with professional speakers, with CEOs, with seven-figure entrepreneurs. So trust me when I say I know this work back to front. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 5 communication shifts that immediately change how people perceive you. This is for high stakes conversations on stage, in speaking environments, and in meetings. So number 1, remove emotional reactivity. The way emotions work is if there is emotion in the room, whether that's a sales conversation, a high stakes conversation, or just being on stage because there's so many people looking at you, what usually happens for people is as that emotion hits their nervous system, they start panicking. And that can look as one of 2 ways. They either go into a shutdown or they go into an overdrive response, performing, trying to be something in someone, and it's often really cringy. So what you want to do is get comfortable with allowing the emotion to move through you. Now, this is the difference between a reactive speaker and a present speaker. The more you can allow the emotion to come, to breathe through it, and to just allow it to go through, the more your nervous system buckles and compresses and tries to protect itself around the emotion that's happening, the more that's going to be received as rigidity, as stiffness, as people not really sure if they can trust you. So the main thing you want to be aware of is what's happening in your body. Is there emotion? And usually it sits underneath the surface. So even as a simple little exercise, if you're getting on stage, closing your eyes, letting the breath come all the way to the belly, and just remembering to do this while you're speaking as well. The difference between being successful in a negotiation and having it not go your way can be simply taking a breath at the right time. So this is something you want to practice in everyday conversations. When you're ordering a coffee, when you're hanging out with your partner, when you're going out with friends, what if instead of reacting, I just take a breath first and see what happens? And what that breath does is it's going to give you options and possibilities that don't exist when you're just responding. And if the breath's hardwired and it just keeps going, so does our thoughts, so does our words. So we want to get comfortable with taking these breaths over and over again so it becomes like a muscle of, okay, I want more options, I just need to take a breath. As Bruce Lee said, I'm not going to imitate him, but there's this beautiful line where he said, be like water, my friend. If you haven't seen the clip, you can go check it out. But essentially he talks about you pour water in a glass, it takes the shape of the glass. You can freeze it, you can unfreeze it. It's very malleable. It keeps responding to the shape and the environment it's in. This is how we want to view our emotional state. Both our capacity to be in touch with what's going on here, but then if you want to take this to the next level, it's even being aware of what the people around you are feeling. This is where real CEOs and top level executives perform at a different level. It's what we call attunement. Can I be aware of the emotions in the room around me? And this is the world's top professional speakers that I've worked with. They have this down to a T. It's like the emotion is happening in the room while they're breathing. And they're not looking to memorize the talk and speak over the top of what's happening in the room. They allow the emotion to move through the room. So the audience feels like they're having a conversation, which is just with them and the speaker, not something that's been pre-prepared and is being recited on stage. Number 2, speak with weight. So top leaders have a way of communicating where their words land all the way over there. It feels like they're handing you one of those big medicine balls you may have used at the gym. When they hand it to you, it's like you feel the weight of it land in your body. Whereas sometimes when people are getting started, their words are just kind of flopping out to the space in front of them. And you see this in meetings as well, where someone's too afraid to put their hand up, to finally put it up, and it's like the words just fall into the space like right here. No one else can even receive them, which is very different if you allow your words to travel and to be received before you go on to the next thing. So how to communicate with words is allow there to be a bit of spaciousness and allow there to be that handover moment when that medicine ball is passed. There's a moment of allowing the other person to receive it. And your capacity to hold that little 2-second gap is what communicates trust and authority and allows you to command the room. Because people that communicate in this way are not in a hurry to get to the next thing, and they know their words are going to be honored and the people aren't going to speak in front of them, but it's because they command that 2-second silence. And when people speak from this place, what they're doing is they're actually listening. So it's not about just pushing the words into someone and forcing them to take it. they're offering the words, there's this handover of weight, and then they're listening. They're listening to see, has it been received, and to what degree has it been received? Is this person just pretending to get along, or have they actually received the message and they're willing to hold it and take it on board and be responsible with it? And they're not speaking or listening from a place of, being worried about being misunderstood. They're okay to just communicate it, see how it lands, and then take it from there. They're working, not trying to formulate the whole thing in their head, but they're actually working from a place of responding to the words that they've already communicated. If you have nothing to contribute, that also means don't just throw your words around for the sake of it. Pick your words, pick your target, pick the thing that really wants to be expressed, and then back yourself 100% when you say it. And I know for some of you, this might feel a bit edgy, or you might feel your nerves going. Doesn't matter if they're going. You're just bringing it all to the table. It's like when it's game day. You're giving it 100%, whatever that 100% looks like. So every conversation you have in this way happens for a reason. So it's not about talking more. It's about talking with purpose. The authority comes from the clarity of knowing why you're there and what you're there to communicate. Skill number 3, eliminate hesitant language. This is one of the most common things I see. So what is this? Like, maybe, and you want to do this both verbally, and then the advanced level is actually get rid of doing it mentally as well. Like when you're going, so all of this creates insecurity, it creates hesitancy, it breaks the trust, and it's all happening regardless of the words you say. So we can call this hedging. Hedging is when you're using words to fill space instead of, and this is actually going to be the tool I'm going to suggest you use here, is silence. So silence does the complete opposite. It commands respect, it creates trust, and it pulls the energy in the room in towards you, which is usually why people avoid it. So if you're going, it's kind of like you're putting that nervousness into the room, and people can feel it even if they're not consciously aware of it. Whereas if you just allow yourself to take a breath, you're actually going to command more attention on whatever the next thing is that comes out of your mouth. So you can do this as an exercise next time you record a video, or even something as simple as whatever you're doing daily. When you're ordering a coffee, get comfortable with not putting any hesitant language in there, not hedging, but just holding a breath, breathing in and then speaking directly, and actually start to pay attention. Do this every morning with the person you're buying coffee from, and just watch how they respond to you differently if you do this. And if you're feeling extra courageous, see what happens if you even extend the amount of silence that you hold. Internally, why we do this is often because we're feeling insecure and we're not taking up the authority that we could be. So every time you do it, don't get into your head about making it a bad thing. Just recognize like, oh wow, I'm okay to take up more space. I can breathe, I can relax, I can let my body physically take up more space, and it's safe to do so. And what people really want from you is calm authority, not performance. So you're not getting in there and gesturing and trying to be someone. You're actually just letting people connect to the real you when you're not filling it in with these little hedgy things. So if you ever watch a speaker like Tony Robbins or Barack Obama, they're not saying, I think what we should do is, it's like, if that's how they lead, no matter what they say after that, and no matter how profound it is, it's like they've already taken all the credibility out of the room. And some of you are often doing this in meetings and high stakes conversations. So what you want to get comfortable with is the silence, but also just holding the conviction. And sometimes even if you don't know what's about to come out of your mouth, can you still hold the conviction as you speak it? Skill number 4, your body speaks before you do. There was actually a study that was done a while ago where they looked at having two people talk and both of them being wired up and their biomarkers being measured. And they found if one person was lying to the other person or just not telling the complete truth, their biomarkers would go up. But what they also found is this other person who didn't actually know cognitively or logically that they were being lied to or misperceived or things were being misrepresented, their biomarkers also went up. Now, what this tells us is the body is a ridiculously amazing instrument at sensing incongruity. I think the best example is like when you've been to a dodgy salesman. You walk away and something inside you just feels not right. It's like, oh, I don't know about that guy. There's something off there. So one of the biggest things we want to get on top of is that our body is communicating the same message as our words, and eliminating the idiosyncrasies, if you will. Sometimes people get on stage and they do this thing where they're like shuffling left and right. Sometimes there's all these nervous tics that happen with the hands. As much as possible, you want to allow yourself to take a few deep breaths and really let the body open up. So when we go into a nervous energy, it's very fidgety and it's usually inwards. So get comfortable standing still. The superhero pose is a really good one. Hands and hips standing. 4 or 5 deep, slow breaths. This is scientifically proven to regulate the nervous system. So it brings in all the good hormones that you want running through your system. If you want to go a little bit of advanced level, you can let yourself go in first, feel the nervousness, just like we suggested at the start, and then come into the expansion and notice how it is to occupy all that space. Usually the best thing to do if you're on stage, for example, is have range. So you want to have the capacity. I've seen people teach like you should just stand there and not move. Yes, if you're ridiculously nervous, that's an okay place to start. But you want to have range. So range looks like you can walk up and down the stage and you can also stand and deliver, because that's going to create far more trust than someone that's locked into either of these two movement positions. A simple way to apply this is slowing your pace down by 15 or 20%. And this is going to feel awkward and weird when you do it at first. Try practicing with the coffee person in the morning. They're going to think you're super weird anyway. But just what happens if you gesture 20% slower? What happens if you slow your words down by 15 or 20%? For you, it's going to feel like a lot. What you're actually going to do to the people around you is command more authority and more presence. Skill number 5, stories beat facts. So a lot of us have an easier disposition to just going to facts, but if you can communicate with stories, you're actually going to create far more influence. And the more detail your stories have, the more deeply it's going to touch people. A lot of people avoid actually taking up time with storytelling because they're afraid of taking up time. And they just stick to the facts, which means they have minimal impact, minimal influence, and what they say isn't really remembered. It's like you get a passing wave of, yeah, that person said something, but I don't really remember it. It was about something like this or that. Whereas when you tell a good story, not only does that person remember it, but it becomes really easy for them to take out into the world, their ecosystem, communicate with their teams, other leaders, entrepreneurs. Like the story becomes its own organism that's very easily passed around. Build 3 repeatable stories. And each story has essentially 3 parts. The beginning, the struggle point of the moment of transformation, and the ending, what happened as a result of overcoming this. If you have 3 key stories from your life that you can go to, if you're in the workplace, great to have some actual stories to talk about the workplace. If you're in marketing, have some stories about people you've supported that you can actually tell when you're communicating with people that are interested. You want to anchor the data in relatable imagery. Now, Brené Brown is one of the best people that does this. I think in her first TED Talk, there's a whole piece in there around, am I a scientist or a storyteller? And what she did, perhaps better than anyone else on a stage that big, is combine the two. What happens when you learn to tell the story of the data? And I get this isn't straightforward, but it's a difference between being forgotten and becoming a global thought leader. There was a piece of research done around recall, and they found if they just used words, only 13% of people remembered what the words were. But if they used imagery, 93% of people remembered what they were. So if you want your messages to be remembered, make sure you link them to stories, to imagery, to make sure it's sticky. Now, one of the main things you want to make sure that you're doing with stories is to make the story relatable to the audience you're presenting it with. So every story needs to have a point and it needs to have a link. It's in your best interest to make sure that you articulate the point and the link for your audience. Very different if you're just doing a storytelling stage. If you're doing a talk or a presentation, you want to do this for the audience. Otherwise, what's going to happen in their head is like, why are you even telling us this story? Cool story, but what's the point? And you want to link it across. And any story can have a link. You have to pre-plan it. You have to really study, how is this going to link to what it is that I want to drive home? As a real example of this, my wife was she's a speaker on relationships, and she was doing a talk recently on relationships, believe it or not. And we were talking about what stories she can use at the start. And the one she suggested, I was like, that's a little bit too deep, too quick. How about you just tell them this funny little story we shared with our son the other day? I was at the changing table, changing our son, he's 9 months old. And my wife would pop around the corner and go, peekaboo. And at first he did this like a little giggle. And then she goes back and pops again. She's like, peekaboo. And there was more explosion of, emotion for him. And then she hides again. Now he's anticipating it. He's kind of smiling. He's like, where is she? And she pops again. She's like, peekaboo. And again, the joy and the laughter erupts. And this kept going on and on. And we were all just laughing hysterically. And he was like, there was more joy than his little body could hold. He was making all these ridiculous sounds, just exploding. And I remember when I shared this with her, she was like, yeah, that's a great story. but what does that have to do with relationships? And I'm like, this is the power of the link. You tell the story and then you say, none of this would have been possible if I'd followed the advice of all the relationship gurus online. So let me tell you about the 5 rules that my partner and husband and I broke to get to the point where we are now having this experience with our child. So those links are absolutely magical and allow you to use a multitude of stories in any context. If you've ever wondered how to speak without anxiety and really dissolve your nerves as a speaker and a presenter, look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for watching this one and see you there.